They say a wedding is the day a woman remembers forever, the one day that glows brighter than the rest of her life. But let me tell you something, sometimes, a wedding becomes the day you remember for all the wrong reasons. Mine wasn't about happiness or fairy tale vows. It was the day my gown was ruined by his first love, and worse, the moment he called it joy, as if my humiliation was entertainment. That moment broke something inside me, but it also lit a fire I didn't know I had. Stay with me till the end, and you'll see why I didn't scream, why I didn't run, but why I chose silence instead, the silence that changed everything. The morning began like every girl dreams. My room was filled with laughter, the chatter of my bridesmaids, and the soft music my mother hummed while pinning the veil into my hair. The mirror reflected a version of me I hardly recognized, eyes lined with kohl, lips trembling but painted with a smile, the ivory gown flowing like a river of light. My hands shook slightly as I touched the lace on the sleeves, tracing each tiny bead. This was supposed to be my happily ever after. My best friend Sana leaned down, whispering, "You're glowing. Arham won't know what hit him when he sees you." I smiled nervously. "Do you think I look enough? I don't want anyone to think." "Shish." She squeezed my hand. "You're perfect. Stop worrying." Her words were kind, but deep down, I wasn't worrying about how I looked. I was worrying about something else, something unspoken that had been haunting me since the engagement. Her name, the shadow that clung to Arham no matter how hard he tried to convince me otherwise. Hania. The stories of his first love had reached me long before we got engaged. They were high school sweethearts, inseparable, the kind of pair everyone assumed would end up married. But fate pulled them apart, or so I was told. By the time I came into his life, he said he had moved on, that I was the one he wanted to build a future with. I wanted to believe him. And for a while, I did. Still, every now and then, when his phone buzzed at night or when he stared a little too long at nothing, I couldn't help but wonder, was she the ghost he was remembering? I pushed those thoughts aside because love has a way of blinding you, of convincing you that doubt is just insecurity. By the time I stepped into the decorated hall, the unease clinging to me was drowned out by the sea of faces. Flowers cascaded from the chandeliers, candles flickered along the aisle, and all eyes turned toward me as the music swelled. I took a breath and began walking, clutching my bouquet so tightly the petals trembled. Then I saw him. Arham stood at the altar, looking devastatingly handsome in his tailored suit, his eyes fixed on me. For a second, the world quieted, and I let myself believe. His smile stretched wide, and I told myself, this is it. He's mine. We're about to start forever. But then, I noticed her. She was seated in the front row, dressed in an emerald gown that shimmered under the lights, her chin tilted high, eyes sharp and unyielding. Hania. My stomach dropped. I hadn't expected her to come. Who invites their first love to their wedding? Or maybe she invited herself. Either way, there she was, and worse, Arham's gaze flickered to her. Just for a heartbeat. But I saw it, and my carefully built confidence began to crack. Still, I walked on. My father placed my hand in Arham's, and for the cameras, for the guests, we smiled. We exchanged vows, promises spoken with trembling voices, and rings slid onto fingers. People clapped, some cried, and for a fleeting moment, I convinced myself the worst was over. Until it wasn't. As the ceremony ended, we began walking back down the aisle, hand in hand, our families clapping along. I was smiling at the guests, trying to ignore Hania's eyes burning into me, when I suddenly felt a sharp tug. The sound ripped through the hall like a scream, fabric tearing, delicate lace splitting apart. My gown. My beautiful gown. I spun around, horrified, and there she was. Hania. Her fingers still curled around the lace at the hem, her face unreadable. Whether she pretended it was an accident or not, I knew. Everyone knew. Gasps filled the air. My friends rushed forward, trying to fix the damage, but it was useless, the gown was ruined, the hem dangling awkwardly. My cheeks burned, my eyes stung, and for a second, I thought Arham would step forward, shield me, defend me. But instead, he laughed. A light, careless laugh that echoed through the hall. He looked at me, then at her, and said, "What a moment of joy. It'll be something we'll always remember." Joy. I stared at him, my heart cracking. Did he not see my humiliation? Did he not see her smirk, the victory in her eyes? Or did he see it, and choose her anyway? The guests whispered, uncomfortable, but no one said anything. No one dared. I stood frozen, holding onto the bouquet like it was the only thing keeping me upright. My father's face turned pale with anger, my mother looked away to hide her tears. Sana placed her hand on my shoulder, whispering, "Breathe. Just breathe." But how could I breathe when the man I had just married chose to call my shame a joke, a joy? My eyes met Hania's, and in her smile, I saw everything I had feared. She wasn't gone. She never had been. She was still the center of his heart. The rest of the evening blurred. Poses for photographs felt like torture, each flash capturing not happiness, but cracks in the illusion. Guests forced laughter, children ran around, the music played on, but inside me, there was silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. When the guests finally left and the hall grew quiet, I found myself alone in the bridal room. The ruined gown pulled around me, the torn lace like a wound that refused to close. I ran my fingers over the ripped edges, and tears finally fell, hot and unrelenting. I thought of all the times I had silenced my doubts, all the times I had told myself I was enough, that I was his present and future, not his past. And yet, in the most important moment of our lives, he had chosen to laugh with her, not stand with me. The door creaked open, and Arham stepped in. He looked flushed, still smiling, as if nothing had happened. "You looked beautiful today," he said lightly. Everyone had such a good time. I stared at him, words stuck in my throat. Finally, I whispered, "Did you not see what she did?" He frowned, confused. "It was just a small accident. Don't make it bigger than it was." "Accident," my voice cracked. "She tore my gown, Arham. In front of everyone. And you laughed. You called it joy." He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "You're overreacting. Don't ruin our first night with this drama." Drama. That was what he called my pain. I stared at him for a long moment, and something inside me broke, not my heart, but the illusion I had built around him. That night, as he talked about parties, about how much fun his friends had, I sat in silence. I didn't argue, didn't scream. I simply went quiet, because I realized something. My silence was stronger than his laughter, stronger than her triumph. And in that silence, a seed of strength was planted, one that would grow in ways neither of them could ever imagine. People always ask, what do you do after your wedding ends in humiliation? Do you scream, do you demand answers, or do you crumble? But here's the truth. Sometimes the most powerful response isn't anger at all, it's silence. Silence that unsettles more than words ever could. After that night, when my gown lay in tatters and my husband laughed at my pain, I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I chose to disappear. And it was the silence of my absence that told a louder story than my presence ever could. Stay with me, and I'll show you why walking away can sometimes be the most beautiful revenge. That night, after all the guests left and the music faded, Arham had fallen asleep quickly, still half drunk on celebration and surrounded by unopened gifts. I sat in the corner of the bridal suite, staring at the ruined lace bunched up on the sofa. My fingers brushed over the fabric, remembering how much love and effort had gone into it. And yet, in a blink, it had been torn away. Just like the illusion of my marriage. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe hours. The city outside was alive with honking cars, faint laughter, and lights glowing through windows. Life moved on, while I was frozen. Then, slowly, clarity settled in my chest. This wasn't where my story ended. At dawn, while Arham still slept peacefully, I opened the wardrobe where my bags had been placed. I pulled out a small one, packed just enough clothes, and slipped my wedding jewelry into a pouch. My heart raced with every sound, but my hands were steady. Before leaving, I glanced back at him. He looked so calm, so unaware. And for the first time, I didn't feel love or longing, I felt pity. By the time the sun painted the sky orange, I was gone. I didn't run to my parents' house right away. I knew Arham would look for me there first. Instead, I called Sana. Her voice cracked with panic when she heard mine. "Where are you? Everyone's worried sick, your parents are crying, and Arham is saying you're just upset." "I can't stay," I whispered. "Not with him. Please, don't tell them where I'm going." "Not yet." There was silence on the line, then a soft sob. "Are you sure about this?" "Yes," I said firmly. "I need to find myself again. I can't do that in his shadow." She agreed, reluctantly, and by evening I was on a bus to another city. The ride was long, the road stretching endlessly before me, but with every mile I felt lighter. I had no plan, no map, only a determination to rebuild. The first few weeks were brutal. I rented a small, one-room apartment in a crowded neighborhood. Gone were the comforts of home, gone was the security of family. I survived on instant noodles and odd jobs at first, teaching kids after school, working shifts at a bookstore, anything that kept me afloat. Nights were the hardest. The silence pressed against me, bringing back flashes of his laugh, her smirk, the sound of fabric tearing. I cried into my pillow so many times I lost count. But with each morning came a little more strength. I learned to cook proper meals, to manage bills, to live within my means. Slowly, I began teaching full-time, something I had always dreamed of but never pursued because marriage plans had taken precedence. Standing in front of a classroom, explaining lessons to eager children, gave me a purpose that filled the emptiness inside me. Meanwhile, Arham tried to reach me. He called hundreds of times, left endless messages. "Come home," he said in one. "You're overreacting," he said in another. "She means nothing, you mean everything. It was just a joke, don't let it ruin us." But every message only hardened me. He still didn't see the depth of my wound, the betrayal hidden in his laughter. To him, my pain was trivial. To me, it was everything. Hania wasn't silent either. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard her words, she couldn't handle it. She was never strong enough to be his wife. That's why I'll always be first. At first, her voice haunted me. But eventually, it became white noise. Because what she didn't realize was that I had stopped competing. You can't lose a race you're no longer running. Months turned into years. My career flourished. I published research papers, earned recognition at work, and built friendships that weren't tied to him or his past. My apartment grew warmer, filled with books, plants, and laughter from neighbors who became family. The broken girl who had once walked away in a torn gown was slowly disappearing, replaced by someone stronger, steadier. And then, unexpectedly, love found me again. Not the whirlwind, blinding love I had once believed in, but something gentler, steadier. His name was Saad, a fellow teacher at the school. He never overwhelmed me with grand gestures, but with quiet kindness, staying late to help grade papers, bringing tea on hard days, listening without judgment when I finally told him my story. "You didn't deserve that," he said softly one evening, his hand covering mine. "But maybe, it happened so you could get here. To this version of you." His words sank deep, and for the first time, I allowed myself to believe that maybe the storm had been necessary for me to bloom. Arham, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky. I heard pieces of his story through mutual friends. He married Hania eventually, but their marriage was a battlefield. The passion that once made them inseparable turned toxic, and within 2 years, they divorced. He tried to build a business, but it collapsed under poor decisions. The man who once laughed so easily now carried lines of regret on his face. Our paths finally crossed again years later, at a friend's gathering. The moment he saw me, his eyes widened. I wasn't the same girl he had last seen, broken and humiliated. I was confident, my head high, laughter spilling freely. Saad stood beside me, his hand resting gently on my back, his presence steady and proud. Arham approached cautiously. His smile was faint, tired. "You look happy," he said, his voice almost a whisper. I met his eyes, calm and unwavering. "I am." There was a pause, heavy with everything left unsaid. Regret clouded his features, but it wasn't mine to carry. That weight belonged to him. Later that night, as Saad and I walked home, he asked, "Did seeing him hurt?" I thought about it. "No," I said slowly. "It didn't, because I realized, he was never my destiny. He was just a lesson. And sometimes, lessons hurt the most, but they teach you the most too." As the years passed, my life blossomed in ways I had never imagined. Marriage to Saad wasn't about drama or competition, it was about partnership. He never made me feel like a second choice. With him, I was first, last, and everything in between. Looking back now, I see that the day my gown was torn wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning. It taught me resilience, self-worth, and the courage to walk away from what didn't honor me. So to you, listening now, if you've ever been betrayed, humiliated, or made to feel small, let my story remind you, your value doesn't come from someone else's love. It comes from you. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away in silence. Because silence doesn't mean weakness. It means strength, dignity, and faith that life has more to offer than what you're leaving behind. The day my gown tore, he called it joy. But I now call it freedom. And I wouldn't trade that freedom for anything in the world. A wedding is just one day, but your life is countless days. Never let one moment, one betrayal, or one person define your future. Sometimes silence, dignity, and self-respect are louder than any revenge.